All right. Good morning and thank you for coming along to the export session today. As already introduced, I'm Jenny van der Meeberg and I'm the Export Manager for Berries Australia. We only have a pretty short time together this morning and a lot to cover. So I'm going to kick off the session by setting the scene with regards to what the berry industry is doing. So what practically are we putting on the ground to support you as growers? But then we're going to move on, and I've asked my industry colleagues, Jeff Scott from Table Grapes and Michael Coote from AusVeg, to actually share their industry stories with you. Now, I'm acutely aware that table grapes and vegetables are different to berries, but the journey that their industries have gone through over the last 5-10 years, I think have some interesting lessons for us as the berry industry. We're trying to really grow our export opportunities. Both industries have successfully transformed from being domestically focused producers to mature export industries, and that's driven the prosperity for their growers. I've asked each of them to share key elements of success from their perspective, and I encourage you to reflect on how their journey might actually have parallels to our industry. I'm also really delighted that Jamie Michael, an experienced strawberry exporter from WA, has agreed to share his perspective, and perhaps his story might inspire you to think about how export could fit into your own business. After the presentations, if we have time, we will have a short panel session, but all the speakers will be here for the day. So of course, if you don't manage to catch us on the panel, feel free to ask us questions afterwards. Now, so the berry industry, market access and trade development. What I'm going to cover today is why should you care? Why is export important to this industry? Who's paying for it? That's also a really popular question, so I'm going to address that up front. What have we accomplished in the last 18 months? What are we doing in the next 18 months? And how can you get involved? So, why should you care? So, industry sustainability is totally dependent on the domestic market remaining in equilibrium. And what I mean by that is supply has to meet demand. If those two things are out of balance and there is oversupply, obviously we see downward pressure on prices. So export is important because it's in the interest of all growers. Everyone benefits from fruit leaving the Australian domestic market and that equilibrium being maintained. Export is also the other way. You actually achieve industry growth. So to meaningfully grow the volume and the value of this industry, we have to find export markets that can take good volumes of fruit at commercially sustainable prices, particularly in the peak windows. Who's paying for all this marvellous work we're doing? So, Berries Australia has worked really hard to secure a range of funding sources to support the activities we're engaging in on your behalf. There is a really significant levy investment project which is funded by the strawberry, blueberry, rubus and blackberry levies collectively, and that project has a 3-year horizon and a project reference group comprised of growers guiding what we do in those activities. We've also been successful in securing grants from the Department of Agriculture, importantly under the ATMAC and PACE programs, to fund some of these activities on your behalf. And we've developed some partnerships with Austrade, who have been delivering services in market to assist growers who want to export directly into places like the UAE, for example. So what have we done in the last 18 months? We've written a number of action plans. Now, there's lots of strategies out there. They have big 10-year horizons, wonderful, ambitious goals, but they don't help us to understand what we actually need to do next to take the next step. The action plans we've prepared have a 2-year horizon, and they are available for you to view in the online export hub on the Berries Australia website. I encourage you to have a look at them. They quite clearly outline, plan on a page style, where we're looking to achieve new market access and the activities we're doing to support trade development in the markets that are already open to us. On that export hub, we've also put a number of terrifically interactive dashboards. Those dashboards are fed with dynamic trade data, and there's about a 2-month lag, which is about as good as you can get in international trade data, but they update themselves routinely. And you can use those dashboards, it's by product, to cut the data in lots of ways, by market, by month, by price. Go on there and have a look. We've also recently uploaded to that export hub a number of market insights. So we were fortunate enough to secure some funding to write detailed insight pieces into how the market in Thailand, Singapore, India and the UAE are functioning specifically in the berry category. And those are available for you to download from the export hub. We've also recently opened an online education course. Now that is free for growers to enrol in. I strongly encourage you, even if you're just a little bit export curious, to sign up for the course. It's broken up into modules, you do it in your own time and it's all online. If you're a large business that's already experienced in export, you might want to consider using that course as a useful induction tool when you're bringing new members into your team. And as I said, all of that marvellous resources are stored in the Export Hub. You can log in. It isn't a password protected area because a lot of this information we don't want to put in the public domain, but you are absolutely able to access it, and we will continue to put more resources in that same location so the industry has a single source of truth when it comes to looking for export support. If you're a member of that Export Hub, you will also receive occasional emails from us. I don't intend to spam you, but those emails will contain important updates, especially with relation to regulation and compliance. Some of the other activities we have embarked upon is to create an export inquiry function. So that's where people from overseas contact Berries Australia looking for product potentially. If you are a member of that export hub, and we know who you are, when we receive an inquiry, which we ask for a whole raft of detail, we try not to forward on the ones that are perhaps a little less genuine on their inquiry, but we can then send that forward to you and you can be directly receiving these market inquiries. We're about to launch an MRL app, which we're really excited about, and I know Jeff will probably touch on briefly. The MRL app is terrific even for those who are non-exporters because it will display the MRLs for Australian context as well as the MRLs for international markets. It is free to use and it will be in your pocket whenever you need it. We've engaged in a number of trade shows in the Middle East, as I mentioned before, with the support of Austrade, so we've been present at Gulf Food and Saudi Food Expo. And of course, for those that are familiar with the trade landscape, market access is always a key question, so opening up new markets for berries for exports, and we've lodged a number of applications on that front. In the blueberry industry, we've sought new access to Vietnam, South Korea, Taiwan and New Zealand. I'm very pleased to say that blueberries is the active negotiating priority with Vietnam at the moment, so we would hope to see some outcome on that front in a few years' time. In terms of strawberries, we've successfully seen a pathway for irradiation created to New Zealand, and we've requested the same for Thailand. And then market access R&D packages is an important body of work because it's the research we need to make these requests for new market access application. And so we have similarly embarked on a number of projects to do the R&D we need so that both blueberries and strawberries can put forward even more market requests. So what's coming up? More market access applications, which is everybody's favourite, and of course more R&D to support them. I will mention on the rubus side, there have been no applications for new market access to date, and that's because we don't yet have any market access data packages to support those bids, so that is a high priority moving forward. We intend to visit Asia Fruit Logistica, which will be in Bangkok this year. It's in November, and we will have a presence for the berry industry in partnership with Austrade. We're in the process of creating some industry capability statements which talk broadly about what you as a collective group can offer into international markets. And those documents will make available to you, but they'll also be made available to in-market government representatives who may be able to promote you and the industry. We intend to run a range of seminars in key markets that we're looking to develop trade, where the market is already open. So that will be in Thailand, Singapore, India and the UAE, and they'll take place in 2023. We're also producing a range of product storage and handling materials. We've found those are particularly valuable when attempting to engage with retailers offshore, especially if they're not terribly familiar with the category and understanding how to keep your product in the best condition. Similarly, in terms of building relationships with those retailers, they're often very appreciative of high-quality photos and videos showing culturally appropriate recipe use of the product. Again, berries is not necessarily part of the regular diet in many of the countries that we plan to export to, so some effort needs to be made in showcasing how your product can fit into their traditional meal types. And finally, we'll be working towards developing some export quality standards. Don't panic, that's not an enforceable thing. It's just about creating some language, shared language across the industry that talks about the different grades and expectations of fruit. So how can you get involved? You can all rush off and join the Export Hub immediately. That's at the Berries website. You are encouraged to book a one-on-one session with our export team. We'd be really happy to come and talk to your business individually about where you're up to and what you want to achieve. You can, of course, enrol in the online export training. That's open now. And you can do some research on markets using that trade data and the insights that I've just mentioned. We plan to have some in-market activities coming up, and we will, of course, email you and welcome you to attend those with us. And finally, just get in touch, share your views, and I am very happy to take feedback on what you think would actually be more useful to you if the range of things we're doing isn't meeting your needs. And the final thought I want to leave you with before handing over to my colleagues to share their stories is that our objective here is to encourage more fruit into export supply chains. It's not to turn every grower into an exporter, and that's a really important distinction. So to be part of an export supply chain, you don't have to be responsible for all the export functions. It's about the business model you choose. If you are curious about export, come and talk to us and we can explain how there are ways to partner with others so that your fruit is export compliant, but the heavy lifting of actually exporting it might be done by another party. I'm going to put my details up here, so if